Now, you said you don't count cards.
I mean, I can count cards. Counting cards is not hard, but no, that's not my strategy, but counting cards is not hard.
So this is true-ish. The statement that counting cards is not hard is somewhat true, and here's why. When people think about counting cards, they think about a scene from a movie like Rain Man, where Dustin Hoffman is keeping track of every single card that comes out of the deck. Seven of Spades came out, and now the King of Clubs is coming next, and he's memorizing the order of everything in the deck. That is not what counting cards actually is. Counting cards is a system used to figure out if the deck is rich with low cards or high cards. Because in Blackjack, when there are a lot of high cards left in the deck, the player has a better chance of getting a Blackjack. And since Blackjack pays 3-2 instead of even money like every other bet, when you're more likely to get Blackjacks, the player actually temporarily has the house edge. So if there was a way to know that the deck was rich with tens and aces, you could pile in more money on your bet and take advantage of the time where you have the advantage. And instead of remembering every card that comes out of the deck, players assign a value to low, medium, and high cards. So low cards 2 through 6 have a value of 1, cards 7, 8, and 9 have a value of 0, and tens and aces have a value of -1. So you're watching the table, and every time these cards are coming out of the deck, you're saying to yourself, 1, 2, 1, -1, 1, 0, 2, 3, and you're literally counting cards. You're not keeping track of the actual cards, you're keeping track of a running count. And when the count gets really high, you then know to increase your bet. Now there's a bunch of other things you need to do if you want to count cards. There's plenty of other videos out there that will teach you how to count cards. That's not what I'm trying to do here. So what I liken this to is if you've ever played a musical instrument, it's like learning a scale. You can learn how to play a scale in an afternoon. Imagine if you had to play that scale perfectly. After some practice, you could do it in your room perfectly, but then you had to get on stage and do it perfectly, and it would take you more practice to be able to do it on stage. Then you had to do it in front of 10,000 people under stadium lights and all these distractions, and you'd have to practice more and get better and better at being able to perform that scale flawlessly. Well, counting cards is like that. You have to keep track of everything flawlessly, and if you make one mistake, the entire thing falls apart. And even if you are counting cards flawlessly, you're only able to flip the house edge into your favor in just a tiny, tiny amount. Think about the opposite scenario. Every time you go to the casino, the house has the edge, and sometimes you still win. So you could be counting cards, get a little bit of an edge, and still lose all your money. So counting cards is simple in theory, but complicated in execution. I don't recommend you do it. I don't think it's worth it. It's easy to detect by casinos, but in this instance, Mikki actually said something correct. Stay boss.